since Joe said I might have the opportunity to speak. I've learned a couple things already about you this morning. I'm no good with names either, but I have learned that evidently everybody's named Joe. So I'll just call you all Joe, and we'll be fine with that. I have wanted to share because I guess we were introduced about 3 years ago, probably, with Joe and Doretta helping us and some of the kids at the Fall Foliage Festival, and then they helped us. Of course, 2020 was a wasted year, but this year we were back in full force. So, and I would be remiss if I did not thank all of your young people that came out and helped us, especially at Fall Foliage. That's the end of the season for us, and we do about 11 weeks of shows. And the last 2 weeks, Fall Foliage, those are our 4 best days. $28,000 we raised in 4 days, and believe me, we didn't have the strength to do it. We were about done about 2 shows before that. So, but we got through with your help, and the small army of men that came out and helped us tear down. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My back thanks you. I'm going to tell stories. Let's just forget a whole lot about some of the other stuff. But I'm going to tell some stories. I'd parked our trailer here, came out. Hi, hon. How you doing? Came out and got the trailer, and my grandson was down at the lower end of the show, and I said, "Can I get in there?" He said, "No." He said, "No, all the crafters are tearing their stuff down." And he said, "Do you want us to come up and help you tear down up top?" I said, "No, that's okay." I'd been away there for about an hour getting stuff, and I said, "I'll pick up the other trailer, and I'll get you later." He said, "Well, there's 7 of us here." I said, "What? What do you mean there's only 3 of you working?" He said, "I don't know, these guys showed up, they helped us tear down. We're all done. We're just sitting around waiting to do nothing." So, and when I got back up top, I don't think I touched a piece of equipment. I just said, "That goes there, that goes there, that goes there." Everybody did their thing, and it was the first time I was ever out before my good friend George Kozak, who sells the ice cream down there. And I waved to him as I went by, and he's going, "What are you going home for?" I said, "I'm done." I said, "I'm done." So thank you, thank you. I cannot emphasize what a blessing that was to me, and seriously, my back really was in tremendous shape. Okay, I'm going to show it in this fashion because we were having some trouble with this, and what I'd like to do this morning, if I can, and I'll try to be conscious of the time. This isn't the most ideal way to do it, but I'm going to do it this way because it's a little easier. And matter of fact, that way I don't have to use all this stuff. And before I also forget, when I was a young man, I used to have a great train of thought. The thoughts would just roll out of my head, and I'd be able to go and go. Now they're just like little birds flying across. There goes another one. So I'm easily distracted, but I do want to remind or make mention of this. There's some brochures in the back. One is our newsletter, telling you a little bit about what I'll tell you here, and the other is our just a general brochure. Precious Life is a little more than a crisis pregnancy center. A crisis pregnancy center is usually an office. They came into popularity back after Roe versus Wade in 1971, and really in the Protestant area didn't come in until probably the late 70s. We were a little bit late to the party, and I've been at Precious Life for 36 years now. I started when I was 6. No, that's not true. I wish I had started earlier. And just by personal note, I have 1 wife and 2 children. It works better that way. You know why polygamy is wrong. Jesus said no man can serve 2 masters. So that 1 wife thing works pretty good. Got a couple of grandchildren, and We've been uniquely blessed at Precious Life for 36 years now, almost 37. And a crisis pregnancy center normally is usually an office where we have pregnancy testing, counseling, sometimes maternity clothes, baby clothes, a place where we can meet a girl face to face. And we have an office like that in Bedford. We have one in Johnstown. We have one in Altoona. And then we also have a ministry in Romania. And that's why we are a little bit more than a crisis pregnancy center. There's not a whole lot of crisis pregnancy centers that have a missions end to them. We also have apartments that are available to us, so we also do some housing assistance, and that's a little bit more than most crisis pregnancy centers. So that's why we call it that. I was going to use this verse. I'm still going to use this verse, but I'm going to use it more at the end. Let me give you another verse, Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 to 16. You know that verse, that passage. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its savor, it's thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under the foot of men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but they put it on a candlestick, and it gives light unto all. Therefore let your light so shine that men might see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. I come from a Baptist background. We're good at being salt, you know. Old Baptist preachers can really preach hard. And that's okay, that's good, but we're not always good at being light, and there's a difference. He only gave one sentence about salt. He gave 2.5 sentences about being light. And we look at ourselves as a light ministry. We want to provide hope and help to young women who think they don't have either of those things. And in reality, that's what everybody needs anyhow, isn't it? Especially lost people. They need to have hope, and they need help. That hope comes through Jesus Christ, and we believe that the help comes through the church. And that's why we are a faith-based organization. Now this verse here, now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundant above all that you can ask or think, unto him be glory in the church. We'll save that for a little later, because I want to share with you about that in a bit. So we'll come back to that a little later. This is our history. We were established in 1985, I think May of 1985, if memory serves me correct. I came along in March of 86 full-time. I was there in 85 when we started. 501c3 nonprofit. I'll kind of run through this stuff. And I will try to, there will be a test at the end. No test. I'll try to remember to open up to questions. Sometimes I forget. 501c3, typical nonprofit, no government funding. We've been offered numerous times. The government would love to get their paws on what we do. But I remember the old Baptist preacher who said, with shekels come shackles. So he always told us, don't take that government money. You might think it's good, but it has strings attached. And then we derive all of our support from local businesses, churches, and one of the things we do is food vending. That's one of our things. Paul made tents, and so it seemed to me that it would be okay if we made tents, or in this case, made chicken fingers. I'm glad Paul didn't live now, because that just wouldn't read right in the Bible, would it? I'm glad that I was among you and made chicken fingers, but just doesn't ring true. So these are the services we offer: a 24-hour hotline. That's always answered by a person, usually me on the weekends and holidays and all that stuff, but our staff during the week. Free pregnancy testing. We don't do as much of that anymore because the testing that they get now in the stores is quite accurate. We do have access to blood tests if that's necessary for some reason. Confidential counseling, abortion counseling. When I say abortion counseling, we do not counsel for an abortion. But we will give her the factual information that she needs. And if a girl's thinking about an abortion, I'd much rather her come and sit down and talk face-to-face with us than to go to Planned Parenthood, who are quite biased. And so we will give her the information she needs in a non-judgmental, kind of laid-back fashion. It's a surgical procedure. They need to know that. We tell them what the temperature will be like in there. We try to give them a good feel as to what to expect when they go there. We will also share with them prenatal development. We'll find out how far along they think they might be. We'll let them know how big the baby is. We'll let them know that at day 21 the heart begins to beat. Day 45 the brain waves can be detected. And usually when they're in to see us, it's 5 or 6 weeks pregnant. And so by that time, the little guy's already about yay big and has all his fingers and toes, and everything is discernible as a baby. And so we'll walk through that process with her and try to dissuade her from getting an abortion and offer her the hope and help that we offer. If she needs help telling her parents, we'll do that. It's probably one of the few times that I haven't done that probably in 5 years now at least, but it's always a scary thing for me. So I dress up like a preacher. I put a tie on. I don't wear glasses. I have contacts, but I take a pair of glasses because you're not supposed to punch somebody who has glasses. So, but we will do that if necessary. Then we have adoption counseling, parenting classes as well. So we tell them their options, and then we also have purity presenting in Romania. We don't do that as much in America. It's just we've done it from time to time, but we've never had a person designated that really felt that calling and wanted to do that. And but in Romania we have a good program. I'll tell you about that in a bit. Then we basically, the tools of our trade: maternity clothes, baby clothes, diapers, pack and plays, baby furniture, all that kind of stuff that you would need for a baby. We accumulate that. We have a warehouse in Altoona. I have thousands and thousands of packs of diapers sitting in there. And we distribute to about 7 different crisis pregnancy centers in central PA. Our centers: Altoona, Bedford, Johnstown, Lewistown, Mount Union, Huntington, and Millersburg, Millerstown, Millersville, Miller something. So we distribute to them. We make sure they're taken care of. And then we ship to Romania as well. And then we do help with some transitional housing from time to time. And in '95, we opened our Bedford office. You'll recognize that as old Dr. Here goes my mind. Dr. who? Yes, Markwood, yeah. I got Dr. Bloom. That was our original office. But this was Dr. Bloom's office. And so we have an office there. It's quite small, but it's adequate. In '97, we opened the Johnstown office. And then in 2005, we began the Romanian Ministry. And I want to spend some time here with this. Let me see one thing. Yeah, that's the warehouse. I was wondering what that other picture was. In 2005, a young lady showed up at our office and said, I'd like to start a crisis pregnancy center in Romania. I didn't know her. She got contact through us through another church, and I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to do what you're doing. I said, okay. I said, well, why? And she told me, Romania has the 3rd highest percentage of abortions in the world after Russia and China. I didn't know that. I thought that's interesting. She said, it is not uncommon for women in our culture to have 10, 12, 15 abortions. Now it got my attention. And as the discussion went on, we came to find out that they had a great need. And so I said, well, what do you really need? She said, well, here's the prospectus. And she handed me this folder. And I'm going through it. And one of the things that struck me was in 2005, that was the first year that our budget ever hit $200,000. And so I'm going through her little thing, and I get to the budget page, and it had like staff and furniture and rental for the property and heat, what it would charge. She goes through all this thing, and something caught my attention. I said, "You can hire staff for $600 a month, 2 people?" She said, "Oh yeah." Average wage at that time was $400 a month, so we're going to be a little lower than that, but we can get 2 people for that. She said, it'll cost us more to get furniture than it will to hire the staff. So that's interesting. I get to the bottom, the budget's $20,000. Now, I've been a believer a long time. Even I know that $20,000 is 10%. I know what that is. I'm thinking, oh, Lord, if I go to my board and ask for $20,000, they'll kill me. I said, what do you need? She said, well, we need a sponsor. I said, what's a sponsor do? Provide training, provide assistance, and provide money. I said, well, the first two aren't too bad. I'll see about the third. Let me pray about it. Let me talk to my board. So we decided to give them $2,000, $3,000 a year, and we have increased that a little bit. But that's how we started our Romanian ministry. I went over in 2005. At the end of 2005, did training, got them up and running, patted them on the back, said, see you later. Thought, I'm not coming back here. How can I describe it? What's the most depressing area in America that you can think of? Don't say Johnstown, because that's just not. It was like downtown Johnstown on steroids. It was bad, and it was just horrible. Stuff falling off the buildings, the blocks, the apartment buildings, the sides falling off, and and I thought, well, I don't think I'll ever be coming back here. It's not a tourist place. So God bless you. We'll pray for you. And for 2006, let them go. Just praying for them. They got up and running. Got their permission from the government to do that. That's a whole nother story. You think our bureaucracy is bad. You should see theirs. We're catching up, though. And in 2007, I'm driving into prayer meeting one night. I'd asked her, I said, look, if you ever have a project for men, I said, I work with women all the time. And to be quite honest, by this time in 2005, I was tired of it. I'd like to do a project. I'd like to go and build something, do man stuff. Could you find a building that we could build? I got guys that'll come. I got a lot of guys. We'll come and build a building or a church or something. So she calls me 2007 in the spring. I'm driving into church on a Wednesday night, and I get in the parking lot, and the phone rings, and it's her. And she said, look, this isn't going anywhere as far as a building project. We don't have the money. We can't find the resources. She said, however, the hospital called us. They would like us to come and rock babies. Can you bring ladies to come over and rock babies? I said, no, I don't want to do that. And I basically hung up. And I started walking in the church. I'm thinking, why would I want to take women over to rock babies? That just didn't make any sense to me at all. And sat down, the preacher says, I know that I don't usually preach on Wednesday night. We normally take prayer requests. But I thought I'd read this passage. I have no idea why. And he read the passage. It says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. They are past finding out. And I'm sitting there going, oh, man. I'm in the back. Because I like to sit in the back. I'm a fairly public figure. When I go to prayer meeting in church, I just want to be in the back. Don't just blend in. So I sheepishly raised my hand up. I said, you better pray for me. I just hung up on this lady, and I think I offended her. And this is what she wanted. She wants us to go rock babies, and I don't want to do that. But maybe his ways aren't my ways. Maybe his thoughts aren't my thoughts. So next morning I woke up, phone call first thing in the office. Hi, my name's so-and-so. I heard you're going to Romania to rock babies. I said, evidently I am. So I said, give me your name. And she signed up to be one of the first. And I didn't know this because I didn't know their culture. They have hundreds of abandoned babies in lots of hospitals all over the place. And many of them gypsy children, not all, but many. And so we took some volunteers over and did all that and started every year. We'd go, sometimes twice a year. And they would just, for 2 weeks, just rock babies. They really didn't rock them because they didn't have rocking chairs, but they held them, sang to them. You know, babies don't care if you sing to them in English. They don't care. They just smile. And that became that was our first extended ministry in Romania. Eventually, they wanted to start a purity program. We have three purity presenters in 3 different cities. We have Marianne in Dej, we have Ioana in Oradea, and then we have Januța in Iași. And they will reach about 15 to 20,000 students in a year. The warehouse ministry I mentioned, we just have a whole bunch of stuff in there. This is what happens in the course of a year. About 1,000 clients in the different offices, including Romania. About 12 to 18 abortions presented, about 2 to 4, sometimes 6 people assisted with housing. We have some apartments available to us in Johnstown and Altoona. Hundreds of families are helped every year, thousands of packs. I don't even want to know how many packs of diapers. There's a company that sends us a tractor trailer load about every 2 or 3 years. There's a lot of diapers in a tractor trailer load, and so they have been generous with that. And then Purity presenting to 15 to 20,000 teens, dozens of abandoned babies loved, and most importantly, lives saved, destinies changed, and eternity is touched. I like to tell stories. I'll do this one here. A girl came up to us this year in Martinsburg, the J4 celebration. We've been doing that show that's our first show usually. And I knew her for a long time. We had worked with her mother probably 25, 26 years earlier. And I'd seen her on Facebook. You know, that's a wonderful tool. So I knew who she was. And I also knew that she had a new boyfriend, because Facebook, you learn everything. And so she's walking up, and I could see her coming up, and she gives me a big hug and says hello, and says, looks at her boyfriend. She said, "This is the man that saved my life and changed my mother's life." And I was dumbfounded. I mean, I was literally, and I'm Baptist and I'm Italian. I'm never speechless. I didn't know what to say because I had never viewed myself that way. I didn't see myself that way. And I'm not saying that to be boastful. I'm saying that because we just did what we normally did for her mom. You know, I remember helping her mom. Her mom was in prison. We got her a place to come out of prison and helped her with maternity clothes and baby clothes and a crib and all that kind of stuff, and made sure she could take care of the baby. And you know, that's just kind of what we do. It's just normal. It's nothing special. It's kind of like to me, it's common sense. I remember when I first started in the crisis pregnancy, when it first came into my mind that we should do something, I'd preached in my church against abortion on a Sunday morning. And I left the church, and since I am Baptist, God doesn't speak in an audible voice. So I just heard, you know, it was just like, big deal. I said to God, "What do you mean big deal? I just preached a pretty good sermon against abortion." He said, "Yeah, but everybody agrees with you." I said, "Oh." I said, "Well, I guess you're right." You usually are. And the question that came to my mind is, what are you going to do? You ever argue with God? Kind of like arguing with your wife, you know. You're not going to win. You might think you won. You didn't win. I said, "What do you mean, what am I going to do?" I wrote letters, I go to marches, I do all this, I preach a sermon against it. What do you mean I'm not doing anything? But what are you going to do? And I got to think, what if a guy came in here this morning just stone cold drunk, just stumbling all over himself? What would you do? What would you do? Well, common sense would be, and Christian common sense would be, let's go talk to him, and let's beat him over the head with our Bible and get him. No, we wouldn't do that, would we? We'd say, "Brother, why don't we get you some coffee?" You know? Why don't we walk a little bit? Why don't we talk a little bit? And it might be that you might have to give him a shower. You know, I mean, you know, you don't smell real good either. Let's get you cleaned up a little. Let's talk. We'd sober him up, wouldn't we? We'd listen to his story. We'd try to find out why he is in the place that he is in, and then we would endeavor to help him. And that's all we're doing. And that's all I did with that little girl. I mean, I'd see her sometimes in church. You know, different times I'd visit their church and she'd be there. But I never viewed myself as someone that changed somebody's life. And you won't think this way. All some of you did was help us tear down. But that allows us to have more strength, more energy, to make sure we answer the phone correctly. Let me tell you, by the end of the shows, I'm not a happy camper. it's not always pretty at the house. You know, it might be pretty right here, but it ain't pretty anywhere else because I'm worn out, I'm exhausted. And when we have people that come alongside us and help us, when we have people who donate stuff to us and help us, when we have people that help us sell food and we raise money, we raised, let me think if I'm going to, let me do this here. We raised, I told you, 28,000 in 4 days. For the summertime, we raised 118,000. That was a new record for us. Our previous record was just under 100. And that was 2019 because 2020 doesn't exist. You know, that's not real. So we raised $118,000 gross, about $60,000 net. And so that's, when people do that and they help us, I hope you understand, I know that our Father in heaven sees that. I don't understand how he's going to give out rewards. I'm not that smart. I told you I'm Baptist. I'm not that smart. And I'm Italian, so I got 2 strikes. But I do know that he knows our hearts. And when you do what God asks you to do, that's all he requires. I don't think he's always concerned about the outcomes. He's more concerned about what's going on in our heart, right? That's why the lady that gave 2 cents was as valuable as the person who gave everything, a great amount, or even better. So, at any rate, let me share with you, now we've got this thing going here, we're cranking here, our ministry is strong. Romania has exploded for us since 2005. And so that's why I use that verse. Now unto him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we can ask or think. I'm always fixated on maps when I see them because I like to look and see where Romania is at in relation to everything. It's about the same latitude as Montreal, actually. I don't understand anything about Romania culture-wise. I've been there almost 30 times. I was going 2 and 3 times a year for a long time, making sure they were doing what they were going to do and they had the resources to do it. And when we got to go in 2021, August, what is that, a couple months ago, I didn't think 2020 was out, you know. So July 2019 was the last time I was there. Wasn't there at all 2020. I'm thinking, I may not ever get back again. And that's okay. But I wonder what's going on. I would get reports, but you're never quite sure of what everything is until you get on the ground and see it. So the first thing we got to do is we got to see a brand new office building. Our previous office building had the square footage probably of this section here. That might even be generous. And it was on the 2nd floor, inside of a courtyard. And you had to go up around steps that were circular. That's a big deal over there. I don't know if you've ever been to Europe, but these circular steps are a big deal. Every place has them. And you try to carry boxes of clothing and stuff up those steps. And, the steps are wide at one end and narrow at the end. It's just, but for 15 years they did that. And then the government came in and said, you got pregnant women coming up these steps. It might be good if you find another place. And so they looked. The beginning of 2020, they found a place, and they sent me this picture. January of 2020, before COVID, they said, this is the new place we found. We got a good price on it, 150,000 euros, or $150,000, which is really quite remarkable in the city. The city has 200,000 people. Prices are exorbitant. I don't know why, but I mean, I would have guessed something like this should have gone for 300,000 or 400,000, maybe 500,000 over there, but they got it for 150,000. And I looked at the picture, I said, you got to be kidding me. So I got on the phone right away, I said, Mihaila, I said, I know this building, don't I? She said, yeah, you drive by it every day you're here. I said, that's next to the hospital, isn't it? She said, yeah. So I would drop people off. Right where the little red box is the maternity hospital, basically that close. And then I would go around the corner and then I'd pick them up there at that little red box and go around the corner again. I'd pass that thing 2-3 times a day, sometimes 4 times, that same building. And so they were able to purchase that. Got another story, but I think I better move on. This building is probably now almost the size of this entire area, maybe even the whole church. I mean, it's monstrous. I won't take my staff there. If I took my staff there, they'd say, why can't we have something like this? It is gorgeous. You can see inside, it's very well decorated and fixed up, and they put a lot of work into it. Those are just 2 reception areas, one on the other side and then one in the main door there. They've got more rooms than they know what to do with. That's a counseling room. They have meeting rooms. They have a little kitchen area. They have their own courtyard. They can have a girl that they're talking to about not getting an abortion, maybe bringing her husband in, or father, or boyfriend, and they can go sit in the courtyard and have coffee and talk. They bring their stuff in, right in off the street. They don't have to go up 2 flights of stairs. All the packages that we send, it's all so easy. And they've got storage all over the place. They've got a children's room. That's one of the office meeting rooms. It's just, they must have 3 rooms like this, that big, plus the interior. It's just, it was exceeding, abundant, above anything that I could ask or think. And it was finished to perfection. So, that's some of our staff people there. And that's me doing what I do best, sit down. It has a second floor on top of it that's not finished. So that might be one of my man projects. They said, if we raise the roof about 2 meters, about 6 feet on the edges, we could put a 3-bedroom apartment up here. So that's something we're praying about. And then we had the privilege in August, of going to see the Gypsy Village. Now I got to give you some history. Let me look at my pictures here. I better not. If I fool around too much, I only had 4 years of college. If I fool around too much, I'll mess everything up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let me jump down to this picture here. In 2005, we wanted to celebrate our 30th anniversary. So somebody said, well, and I had gone on a missions trip to build playgrounds in Israel, and somebody said, well, why don't we go build playgrounds in Romania? I said, I like that. That'd be nice. So we thought we'd go build one. So we talked to the city. Arati has, as I said, 200,000 people, and talked to the mayor. He said, man, you won't believe it. She said, we've got 13 parks, and my desire is to have all those parks connected by a bike path, and each park needs a playground. So you could come build a playground. And then we heard of another village that was very poor. Some people that we work with lived in that village. So we said, yeah, we'll do 2. And then this guy called me and showed me that picture. Actually, it wasn't that picture. It was a different one. The second story wasn't on the first picture I got. And he said, this is a gypsy village that I work with. The guy in the picture is the choir director. He's a Romanian, lives about 20 minutes away, but he goes to this village and works with these gypsies. And he said they have a program, after-school program, where they have 60 to 70 kids come in at 12 o'clock after school's out in the daytime, and they feed them, and they make sure they're clean, they teach them hygiene, they have tutors that come in and work with them on math and language skills and all those things, the older gypsy kids. And so he said they could use a playground. They've got all these kids coming every day. I said, oh, okay, we'll do 3. So we did 3 playgrounds. One of my small man projects, I was quite pleased to go do that. And so we built them their playground, and we heard their choir sing. Your music this morning, by the way, was exceptional. Exceptional. These guys would knock your socks off. I mean, they say that gypsies have a knack for music. I gotta agree. I've never seen anything like it. Those roughly 20 young adults came over. We happened to get them right at the right time. We were told they would never be able to make it. The government will never allow gypsies, not 20 of them, to come to America. That's just not going to happen. It all worked out. We brought them. They did a tour. And they didn't want to. The pastor's on the left-hand side. He wasn't really on board. I said, we'd like to have the gypsies come over. They're just phenomenal. Everybody that hears them says, oh my, we got to get them to America. And he said, why? Why would we want to come to America? We're safe. We're happy. We like where we're at. They're very cloistered, you know. So I found out he wanted to build a medical clinic. Gypsies are discriminated against. All those kids, when they were little, ran around with no clothes on, no shoes on their feet, begging for bread. One of them, which one? I can't. Where is Alice? I think she's hidden. Alice, she used to, we got talking. She said, I used to be a thief. I said, you were? She said, yeah, when I was 10 years old, I used to steal apples so that we could eat. I said, oh. And every one of them has graduated from the university. There's up in that group, there's an IT guy, there's a couple architects, there's 2 or 3, 4 nurses, there's one doctor. Dr. Mona is up in there. They all have their degrees now. And now they're all married, having their own kids. It's kind of weird, you know. But we got them just at the right time. They came over. I said, Peaky, I think, we call him Peaky. I have no idea what it means, but that's his nickname. I said, Peaky, if you come over, I can guarantee you we'll raise at least $15,000. We had 20 concerts scheduled. That wouldn't be a stretch. They came over, raised $30,000. When he heard the money, and he thought, yeah, we could start the clinic with $15,000. We could buy the land and get started. Then he decided to come. They sang at the Brooklyn Tabernacle, in the big tabernacle in New York. And they were no different there than if they were standing here. It was the same presentation. They just loved the Lord, great voices. Sang the Hallelujah chorus every service to quit. That was prerequisite. You have to sing that when you finish. I said, I don't care what else you sing. Well, I made them sing the Italian song too, which the March of the Hebrew Slaves, but they're just phenomenal. So they came over, sang, raised the money. We went over and helped them. Finally got to do a real man project and did the footers. The first walls are going up. Slabs going down. There's the first floor. Take a look at the background. There's this huge valley, just as far as you can see, and then right in the background you see those mountains, and in the springtime they still have snow on them, kind of like Colorado, you know. And so that's going to be the medical clinic. There it is with the church in the background. They're getting the flooring down, putting the second story on. And that's why I went back in August, because they were finally going to dedicate it. So from 2015, they started roughly the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, and by 2021, we were able to dedicate the building. That's what it looks like. Upstairs, there is 2 apartments for visiting doctors or nurses or interns that come from the city. They don't have to stay in a hotel. They can go and stay there. And I said to my buddy, I said, Alan, I ain't staying in this gypsy village ever. Just so you know, I don't care. I don't want to stay. I want to stay in a nice hotel. And he laughed at me. When I saw what they did, I'd stay there in a heartbeat. It is so perfectly finished. Now, when I say perfectly finished, you got to understand, these guys believe in doing trim work with a chainsaw. You know, that's I'm not kidding you. We were up there and putting the first floor up, and they're putting the studs up and stuff. They got a chainsaw cutting the studs, rough cut lumber. You know, nothing's gonna quite fit, right? So we went to the store and bought them a good saw, good hand saw, you know. And we bring it over, show them how to use it. Oh, that's wonderful. They used it. About 5 minutes later, we turned around, and there was a chainsaw back out. So it was built by gypsies to their specs, and it is exceeding abundant above anything I could have asked or expected. It was a hard task. For 5 years, we went back and forth. Oh, you need this, you need that. We have to do this, we have to do that. We had to raise money. We raised money apart from Precious Life. We didn't use Precious Life's money for that. We raised it all privately. But they got it finished. And they got it done. And of course, they sang the Hallelujah chorus. And then they did sing the slave song for me, too. This is just, I didn't have enough pictures. That's the upstairs. There's 2 apartments, and then there's this common area that goes all the way along the front. All the windows see that big thing, that big valley and the mountains in the Brasov in the back. And that's just how they finished it. I couldn't have picked out better furniture. I couldn't have picked out better flooring. Everything was absolutely perfect. I don't think it was, it wasn't in that other picture. They even landscaped it. Nobody landscapes anything in Romania. Anybody. No, Romanian, certainly not gypsies. Beautiful landscaping done down the driveway. Exceeding, abundant, above anything we could ask or think. And so we came back and finished up the summer. And guess what the summer was? Exceeding, abundantly, above anything we could have asked or think. We set records in every place we did a show. We had a record baby bottle. We did a baby bottle campaign where we send baby bottles out. That's another $100,000 we raised there. All that was God's provision. And this is the real reason we go, because of the babies. That's the pastor's wife. Her name is actually Ribana, but I could never remember if it was Ribana, Ribini, Rabana. I said, I'm just going to call you Ruby. She liked that. Doesn't speak much English, but she likes Ruby. She makes the best mashed potatoes. So I asked one day, I said, listen, what is the ingredient? There's something in here that's different. I said, can you tell me the recipe? Just love. I looked at her husband. I said, I'm not getting the recipe, am I? She said, no, you won't get the recipe. And this is one of our volunteers from Johnstown taking care of a baby over there. So that's what we do. And in the past year and a half, actually since the middle of 2020, we have been overly blessed, overly provided for, abundantly more than we could ask or think. That can all change tomorrow, as we've learned, haven't we? Anything can change in a moment, but we are grateful for what God has done, and I'm so thankful. I bragged on you guys all over the place. I'm sure I probably embarrassed some churches, but I don't care. We have never seen anything like what we saw. I was out of Bedford Fall Foliage at 6:30. The show was over at 5. I was out at 6:30 pulling out. Normally we don't get out till about 8:30, and you drag yourself home. I was home. I felt refreshed, and I want to thank you for that. You have been a blessing more than you will ever, ever, ever know. So thank you. Now, I'm not sure what time we're supposed to close, so I will open it up for any questions, comments, snide remarks. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So the purity program, could you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, it's we have an open door over there. Major city runs around 200,000 people. They'll have 17 or 18 high schools, and then the county will have another 17 or 18 high schools. And our ladies can go in. They have carte blanche. They've even been told, you want to bring your Bible? Bring your Bible. That's okay. We've got problems. We've had some schools tell us that. So they go in and they talk about abstinence and purity, but they do it from a relationship standpoint, not in the front door, kind of in the side door. Look, we're talking about relationships that are going to last a lifetime. What kind of choices are you going to make, and how are you going to make those choices? And so it's not as much a quote-unquote sex talk as it is about choices and they'll go into the areas of pornography and sexually transmitted diseases and all that stuff. But it's a really good program. We got 3 really great ladies. Actually, we had 4. We lost one, trying to get her back. But we have 3, and they're all different. One is a psychologist, and she comes from a very psychological perspective. Very interesting to hear her. We have another one that's just all heart. You know, you don't even have to. I don't even have to understand her. I know that she loves those kids because you can just see it. And then we got one that's like a general. She scares me. We call her the school marm. Her hair's always pulled back, and she can control. She's a little thing, but she can control a classroom. Those boys step out of line. I watched her walk back down the aisle, and just whack the desk. And boy, you talk about getting attention. So I'm practicing abstinence, and I don't even, I'm married. She scared me. She's a great girl, and they've been with us a long time. And they'll see 15 to 20,000 kids. I just sent them over bracelets. The kids like bracelets. So they give out one that says, "I'm worth waiting for the girls, and the boys says, "A man's strength is his character." As I said, we have carte blanche there. We could, if we had the finances, we could change a whole lot of stuff over there. It's kind of like the Wild West. I mean, you right now you can do anything. COVID has trimmed it down a little bit, but they just said, "We need more bracelets. We're still going into schools." I said, "Okay, we'll get them to you." So, does that answer your question? Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
How many of the people that you help that come to your pregnancy center come from Christian homes, or the ladies off the street, or from dysfunctional homes, or what kind of?
It's from all over. It's from all over. It's probably the worst client we ever dealt with was actually a pastor's daughter, and she was like the far end of the spectrum. She was just way out there. We've had deacons' kids. We've had church kids. But I would say most are probably unsaved. I would say probably 85, 90% probably are unsaved.
Other questions, how did you come through 2020 if you didn't have the ice cream? Was that part?
Well, we parked it at my church in Altoona and just sold cheesesteaks out of there. That got us enough cash flow to get through. But it was not ideal. It was just a bad. But what happened, and God in His providence knows all this stuff. In June, right when COVID started to hit, we lost a full-time employee who I thought was going to take over for me. He's a great guy, and he just decided to go back to what he was doing before, and I wept bitterly. And then about 3 months later, we lost our main person in Johnstown who was a full-time employee. And so losing both of those saved us on the expense side. So God in His providence did that. So, and plus the giving is just, I have no explanation. We looked at we've never been in this place before, never. And I looked at the board members. I said, "You don't know Alan Hancock. Nobody here knows Alan Hancock, do you?" No. Alan's my spiritual advisor. He's 85 now, I think. And we would travel Romania together. And he always promised me he'd drive. He never did drive. I always did all the driving. He just talked. And so he said, "Let me ask you a question," one day. He said, "Is it harder to be rich or to be poor?" And, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, look at Romania. When they were in poverty, when they were poor, and they were exposed to the gospel, and they responded to the gospel in mass, 1989, 1990, 1991, when the curtain fell, they had tremendous faith. They didn't have anything else. When you're poor, that's all you got, is your faith." He said, "But now they have riches. Now they have expendable income. Now the Christians have money. And what kind of faith do they demonstrate? And now we're learning that as a ministry. We've been poor. We know what it is to go from one show to the next and not know if you're not going to have enough money to make the budget. We know that. That's not too long ago. But now God's blessed us abundantly. So now what do? We're responsible to be good stewards. That's a little bit more difficult. We got to be smart now. So we still have to use our faith and trust the Lord. So our budget's $500,000 at this point. And I've had people ask, where do you get it from? I can account for about 2/3 of it. There's about 1/3 that I have no idea where it's coming from. And so God's been exceeding abundantly above all that we can ask or think. Just trying to stay out of his way. You know, whatever you're doing, God, we're along for the ride, you know. So, any other questions? I can hum the theme song to Jeopardy if you'd like. Yes, ma'am.
How do people find out about you?
Mostly word of mouth. We do a little billboard advertising. There's some up around town, even in Bedford, I think. Radio's always after us to do some stuff. We haven't done too much on radio, but we might do some now. Most of it's word of mouth and school. The schools all know us, and the school districts and the guidance counselors and the health professionals all know us.
So do hospitals ever send people to you?
Yeah. It's not. You'd be surprised. At least twice a year, probably, maybe 3 times, 2 to 3 times a year. We'll get a call from the hospital. This girl showed up, didn't know she was pregnant. Now that first struck me as odd, but I've seen it now enough that I know that it's really not that odd. So we have a whole host of things that we can provide hope and help. Can I tell you one other story?
Sure.
We're in a city of 200,000 people. Kelly, her husband, that's Kelly, her husband Joe. I don't know if you got another Joe. Must be a great name. Don't say anything, Mr. Spiker. Joe would travel with me just to hang out. You know, my wife's going to be over there. I might as well go with you. I'll hang out with you. And we go and we see business people and we visit professionals and pastors and talking about the ministry. And that's what we do during the day. And then we go and get the ladies at night. They finish up at night. And we go have dinner together. And so he travels with me. And we're going to lunch one day. And I said, "Where do you want to go?" He said, "Let's go to McDonald's. We haven't been to McDonald's the 2 weeks we were here. Let's go to McDonald's." City of 200,000 people, they have 2 McDonald's. 2. How many is Bedford has 1, right? Do you have 1? Yes, down to Walmart. 2. You have 2. You have 2. Where's the other one?
Walmart and interchange, Bedford interchange.
Oh, that's right. You do have 2. Man, fine dining. So I said, "Okay, we'll go to McDonald's. Which one do you want to go to?" We always go to the one. He said, "Let's go to the other one, the other end of town." So we go down there. We walk in the door. And the line's about 6 or 8 people deep and about 6 or 8 people wide. It's just crowded. Somebody's tugging on my shirt. I turn around, there's this pretty little girl. Now, that's not unusual for me, you know? It's not unusual to have women tugging at. No, that's not true. She said, "Do you remember me?" And normally I don't, but this one I did. I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "You are Laura, and that is David, your little boy." She said, "Yes." I said, "I saw you in church about 2 years ago when he was just 1. She said, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Well, I just happened to see you come into McDonald's." Just happened. How does that happen? 200,000 people. "I just happened to see you come in, and I wanted to tell you thank you." And then she started to list all the things we did for her. She was a young lady in university, studying to be a doctor, found herself pregnant, Christian home, said, "I can't keep this baby. I'll never be a doctor." Our ladies met with her, and they were telling me the story. You know, they're saying, "Hey, we got this girl, pray for her," and I'm praying for her, and provided some things for her, but what she really needed was medical books. We have found that there's usually one thing and a girl thinking about an abortion, there's usually one thing, you never know what it is, but there's usually one thing that puts her over the edge. And with this girl, it was medical books. She said, I can't afford medical books. So they called me, they said, could you get some medical books and ship them over? I said, well, they're in English. They said, it doesn't matter, just ship them over. I said, okay. So we sent medical books, and of course they helped her with the practical things. And she changed her plans, and she had the baby. She was in church when I was there, and I got to see her and the baby then. And then here she is again. She said, I just want to thank you for all the things you did. She goes down the list, bump up diapers and Pampers and wipes and food and medical books. Medical books. I did that. I remember sending them. I remember thinking this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. And they were heavy and they were expensive, and we sent them, and you got them. She said, I just want you to know it all turned out okay. I have just graduated from the university, and I'm now, and she had a little pin here, pediatrician. I'm a pediatrician, and I volunteer at the Pulse, that's what we call it there, the Pulse Center. I volunteer there so that I can help other girls as well. Found out later on she could play the guitar and a good worship leader and singer, and didn't know any of that stuff. But, and then she said, I just wanted to say thank you, God bless you, and she turned and walked away. And I looked at my buddy Joe, I said, let's go home. I said, because it's never going to get any better than this. This is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. About 4 or 5 times this year, somebody's going to come up to me and say, do you remember me? Most of the times I won't. But when they start telling me their story, a lot of times it clicks, and I remember the story. I've checked out a Sam's Club and stood there and wept with a little girl who we had worked with a year or 2 before, and didn't realize, didn't put 2 and 2 together. So we have been uniquely blessed. We have seen lives changed and eternity affected because of the prayers of God's people. Now the last part of that verse says, unto him be glory in the church. God gets all the glory for all the little stories. You know, one more quick question. I've got a lovely wife. I've got a wonderful wife. She lets me go run around the country with other ladies and on the other side of the world, and she just, I like to call and bust on her a little bit, I called her one day, I said, guess where I'm at? She said, I don't know. She said, I'm in Budapest. I'm on the Danube, and I'm having dinner with 6 beautiful women. And her response was, what time are you getting in? Couldn't get her roused up, couldn't get her feisty. Okay. And someday we're going to be in glory. And let me tell you something. There's going to be a boat that comes by with a whole bunch of rewards. And it's going to have my wife's name on it. Because you see, I get my rewards now. I get people come up and slap me on the back, say, good job, thank you. Oh, that was wonderful, this was great, this was good, That, I got my rewards. But there are people who minister. My wife, at least in this ministry, is number 1 in that line. But there's a whole big long line of people that don't get noticed, that don't get thanked, that, just do what God asks them to do. And that's the secret of a successful ministry and a successful Christian life. I will close by quoting a great theologian, Ronald Reagan, who said once, it is amazing what can be accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit. Pretty good words, huh? And so thank you for all that you've done. I'll go home, I'll drive down I-99, and I'll start crying because of the good people that you are. And those people, and that'll happen to me lots of times. It usually causes concern for the other people in the car, but I'm sometimes overwhelmed by what God has done. And so thank you for all that you do and your prayers and your support. So, are we done? In Hee Haw, they used to say, nobody even knows what Hee Haw is anymore. Remember the show Hee Haw? No? No. They'd say, we're all done singing now. So we're all done speaking now. So Joe, come and dismiss us.
there anyone else has anything, any announcements, anything? There's a fellowship meal food in the basement. As soon as we are finished here, make your way down there, and there's food there. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for what Scott shared with us. Thank you for the ministry of reaching people. And we ask you to bless the food today and be with us, be at the time of fellowship. Just guide and direct and be with each one. We thank you for everything in Jesus' name. Amen.